My name is Manuka Wijesinghe. I'm a writer of fiction and poetry. I'm also a dancer, an actress, and just a lover of beauty. I just love things that are beautiful. And I've written 3 books, or rather 4 books. One was a book of poetry called Silhouettes of Justice, which was, I think, written about around the 1990s. Then I wrote a trilogy. The first one was Theravada Man, Sinhala Only, and Monsoons and Potholes. And that's Sri Lanka or Ceylon, spanning from, I would say, the 1920s till about the beginning of the war, since '83. And this last book I wrote is called Like Moths to a Flame, and that's the book. And the reason I wrote this was I realized we had fought for 26 years, killed a couple of generations of kids, and we were still not united, because we were all talking about everybody's rights, Sinhala rights, Tamil rights, everybody's rights, but we were incapable of living together. And I felt it was time that we transcended, that we rose above our individual, subjective, ethnic-bound, language-bound, religion-bound selves, to reach for something greater, something more mystical, something beautiful, something spiritual. And that's why I tried to write this book. And my main character in this book is a Sufi. I call him the Baba. And it's about his daughter whom he raises in a landscape of the Tamil Sangam. Tamil Sangam is a poetic landscape in South India. And this poetic landscape has a very important aspect, and that is a landscape dedicated to the natures of love, the different natures of love. So that means somebody who comes from the seaside has a different way of loving than somebody who comes from the mountains or from the township or the forest. And I want to bring that beauty back into our society, that we understand that, we are not just little breakaway language entities, but that we should live together in a sense of beauty, sense of brotherhood, sense of understanding, sense of just flowing like a drop of water in a river, and maybe one day in the hope of reaching the sea. And that's why I wrote this book. And to do that, I also wanted to bring, that is not all, but I also wanted to bring try to ask, where did we go wrong? Why did we sacrifice 2 generations of kids for a war which was utterly unnecessary? I'm just not talking only about the Tamils, but the Sinhalese children as well. But I've written a lot about the Sinhalese. I thought it was time that as a Sinhalese, I paid my dues towards the Tamils, to write about them. How we, as an ethnic community, failed them. Why we didn't go and stand out and protest when they were being killed. Why we let something like a Prevention of Terrorism Act take our kids away. These were our siblings. We speak 2 languages, but we are from one country. We look alike. We eat the same food. We have the same kind of blood. So I started writing this book, and I thought I could find the person who had faulted. It could be a mother, a father, a grandfather, a culture. What I realized was that every one of them, every mother, every father, every grandmother, every culture, even if they did the wrong thing, they did it thinking what they were doing was right. As I say in this book, a father was somebody who was living in a present age, talking about a future age. So we are all prisoners of the age in which we were born into, and we can't really give advice to children who are living in a future age. So everybody did perhaps the wrong thing, but thinking what they were doing was right, except the state. The Sinhalese state, deliberately wrong. It did the wrong thing knowing what they were doing was wrong. They brought in a national Sinhalese language, they brought in a quota system, they did everything to make sure that this community of people, the Tamil-speaking people, had no exit. They had no place to go. except to the dead-end street of Elam. And Elam was the only salvation. And I wanted to give them that justification. And also that we, as Sinhalese, think that we failed our brethren, that we are the guilty party. We are responsible for the death of every single one of them because we never complained, we never said nothing. We just let it happen. And this is my way of giving back what we took. I just wrote this book. So let me read something from the book. I don't quite know where to start, but I'll read a little bit from the Baba, the Sufi, and the father, and the little daughter. And then I'll proceed from there to a couple of other places. The Baba's daughter, by the way, is Mariamma, and she becomes subsequently the mother of the young boy who decides to be the beacon of light of Tamila. And this is about the mother's upbringing, because she's the daughter of this spiritual person, the Sufi. Tell me of the place from which you came, Baba. Mariam asked her father. She was on his lap, being tickled by his long beard. I came from the Marudam called Marudamune by the Matakula Muddy Lagoon. Where is that? In the islands east? Oh, tell me no, just tell me more. Her thirst for knowing him was unquenchable. It is a strip of land between the lagoon and the sea. From the Neda, the seaside, the wind howls, while from the other, the Marudam, the town side, coconut and palmyra palms dance the Portuguese baila dance to burger calypso music and lagoon singing fish. Fish sing there? Indeed, he replied. And the burgers, what are they? They are Portuguese seamen who jumped ship and swam ashore to love the East's beautiful Mukuba girls. And they dance too. When I left, they were still dancing. How do they dance, Appa? He tucked his sarong, bent his knees, folded his elbows, and showed her the dance that was known as the baila dance. He had never taken her there, but the East sights and sounds were painted in her mind like the fragrance of the rose oil he had once brought her. When you may not see me, Mariamma, keep your nose to this bottle and I will be with you, he had told her when he gave it to her. Now Mariamma needed his presence. She opened the box under her bed, which she kept the few things she cherished, took out the bottle and opened it to her nose. Barely had she smelled the rose's sweetness when the stench of gingerly oil engulfed her. She was later given in marriage to a Tamil man, and she never liked him. So the next part is the dilemma she has with the husband. Mariamma, I took you with no dowry. Give me a son at least. She put the bottle back into the box. What do you want? Do what you must do. You are not a dead body, Mariamma. You are a living woman. She was not a dead body, but she was a dying soul in a living body. He did what he had to do to get that son. When he released her, she left the room deathlike. Give the man what he wants, his Parvati Amma, her mother, always watching. To know what he wants, you know what he wants. You give him, she said. The woman slapped her daughter across the face. Something she did when no man was around to stop her. Mariamma looked at her defiantly. Her mother's wrath never hurt her. Why can't you give your husband what he desires? You should be worshipping the soil he walks on. Blessed are you that he took you, a man of distinction, cultivation, eminence. Parvati Amma had married a Muslim and then spent her married life regretting it. Now she had got a second chance to be a Tamil. Listen, Mariamma. No other man would have taken a woman without a dowry, and one with a Mukwa blood too, and his low caste habits. Not to mention his mad god, Mariamma. Wretched child. Are you aware that your distinguished husband spat upon custom to wed you? Mariamma wished he had spat on her instead of custom. Your husband is 1 in a million. My father was 1 in a million too. Indeed he was, in his worthlessness. So that is a little bit of the dialogue between the mother and the daughter, and I brought a bit of the Baba in there because the mother has a complicated story too. She was born under malefic planets and not very treated in that family. So she had run away and met this Muslim and married him. I just read just one paragraph of that. Mariamma's mother had not always been like that. She had once found joy in the lightness of the Baba's spirit, but his spirit could not carry her when he left. It was the ugliness of her own spirit that prodded her now, easing the memories of erstwhile love and loveliness. Parvati Amma's story was a cursed one. She had been born with a natal astrological chart whose benevolent houses had all been aspected by malefics. They had aspected parents, siblings, partners, and profits. Every misfortune her family faced was traced to her birth. A son's miscarriage, a financial loss, a daughter's birth, and even communal riots. They had tried to appease her planets with religious rituals, but the planets were stubborn. Finally, tied to the sacred tree of her most malefic Navagraha lord, with its white cobra and the sacred Brahmin buying her, as the chap put buckets of purifying cold water on her taut form. Parvati had been overcome by a force greater than the planets and had taken destiny into her own feet and fled towards the ocean's edge, the Nedar. There, the Baba had seen her, dipping her large toe into the endless ocean, a dark, dusky beauty, covered in a swirling yellow cloth, dancing at the ocean's edge like a whirling dervish, and he, an ugly moth, had flown to her yellow flame.